History remembers Rome as the master of the ancient world, a powerhouse of land-based legions that conquered nearly everything they touched. But out on the open sea, for a long time, they weren't the hunters. They were the prey. For decades, the Roman Republic lived in fear of a naval power so dominant, its ships were less like vessels and more like superweapons. This is the story of Rome's worst nightmare, the Carthaginian navy, and the revolutionary engineering that let it rule the waves. Section 1. The Inheritors of the Sea. Before Rome was even an empire, before its eagle standards had left the Italian peninsula, the Mediterranean Sea belonged to Carthage. Located in modern-day Tunisia, Carthage was a city born from the waves. Its founders were the Phoenicians, the greatest maritime traders of their age. They passed down generations of knowledge, a deep, instinctual understanding of winds, currents, and shipbuilding that the land-loving Romans lacked. For a long time, Carthage was the heavyweight champion of the Western Mediterranean. While other powers like the Greeks certainly competed for control, Carthage's vast trade network stretched from the shores of the Levant to the Atlantic, a testament to its naval might. The city's power didn't flow from legions on the march, but from the hulls of its massive merchant fleet. And protecting that wealth was a navy unlike any the world had ever seen. So when the expanding Roman Republic finally clashed with Carthage in 264 BC, it wasn't just a war between two cities. It was a war between two philosophies, the masters of the land versus the masters of the sea. Rome quickly discovered that its legions, invincible on foot, were helpless against the wooden walls of the Carthaginian fleet. To challenge Carthage, Rome would have to do the impossible, build a world-class navy overnight. And they were about to learn that Carthaginian ships weren't just wood and sail. They were instruments of war, perfected over centuries. Section 2. The superweapon explained, the quinquereme. At the heart of Carthage's naval power was its signature vessel, the quinquereme. The name means five-oarer, and while historians still debate the exact arrangement, the leading theory is that it refers to 5 rowers working across 3 banks of oars. This setup gave the ship a devastating combination of speed and power that left rivals struggling in its wake. The quinquereme was the main battle tank of the ancient seas. At around 35 to 40 meters long, it was a sleek, fearsome predator with a total crew of about 300 men, a mix of rowers and marines for boarding actions. But its primary weapon wasn't the soldiers on deck, it was the ship itself. Mounted on the prow, below the waterline, was a massive bronze ram. This wasn't for crudely smashing into other ships. It was a precision weapon, designed to punch a fatal hole in an enemy hull with a single, perfectly aimed strike. Carthaginian shipwrights were masters of their craft. Their quinqueremes were built to be lighter and more nimble than their enemies. They were the product of constant refinement, a design perfected for the hit-and-run tactics that defined Carthaginian naval strategy. In the hands of a skilled crew, a quinquereme could accelerate with terrifying speed, execute tight turns to outflank an opponent, and deliver a killing blow before the enemy even knew what hit them. For Rome's rookie sailors, facing these ships was a terrifying prospect. Section 3. The Secret to Speed, an Industrial Revolution. Carthage's naval dominance wasn't just about better ship design, it was about production. In one of history's most astounding military-industrial feats, Carthage could lose an entire fleet in a storm or a battle, and then replace it in a matter of months. How? Through a revolutionary, almost modern approach to shipbuilding. Ancient accounts and archaeological finds suggest the Carthaginians pioneered a form of modular construction. When the Romans captured a Carthaginian warship and took it apart, they found that its pieces were marked with numbers. This points to a system of standardized, prefabricated parts. Timbers were cut to precise, interchangeable specs, allowing for rapid assembly, kind of like ancient flat-pack furniture. This proto-assembly line meant that ships could be built and repaired at a speed that was simply unheard of in the ancient world. When Rome decided it needed a navy for the First Punic War, it got a lucky break. A Carthaginian quinquereme ran aground and was captured. The Romans used this one ship as a blueprint, reverse engineering it to build their first ever major fleet. But even with the plans, their early copies were heavier, clumsier, and slower than the Carthaginian originals, a testament to the superior craftsmanship of Carthage's shipwrights. Carthage didn't just build ships, it ran a naval factory on a national scale, a weapon that Rome struggled to counter. Section 4. The Engine of Empire, the Kothon. The physical heart of this naval machine was another engineering marvel, the military harbor of Carthage, known as the Kothon. This wasn't just a place to park ships, it was a top-secret naval base, deliberately hidden from prying eyes. The harbor was a brilliant two-part design. Merchant ships used a large rectangular commercial port. But beyond that, through a narrow channel that could be sealed with a chain, lay the circular military harbor. This inner sanctum was surrounded by high walls, shielding all war preparations from spies. In the center of this ring was an island with the admiral's headquarters, giving him a 360-degree view of the entire fleet. Suddenly, Carthaginian seamanship meant nothing. Their faster, more agile ships were trapped. The ancient writer Appian claimed the harbor had slips for up to 220 warships. While archaeologists debate the exact number, the scale of the operation is undeniable. Each slip was part of a two-story shed that protected the ships from the elements and allowed for round-the-clock repairs, with the upper level used to store gear like oars and sails. The Kothon was a fortress, a shipyard, and a command center all in one, a perfectly designed engine for a global naval power. Section 5. Tactics in action. How they fought. A Carthaginian warship in battle was a thing of terrifying beauty. Their crews, a mix of citizens, subjects, and highly trained mercenaries, were masters of complex naval tactics. They didn't just sail into a fight, they dictated the terms of engagement. Two maneuvers were their signatures, the Diekplaus and the Periplaus. The Diekplaus was a daring move where they'd sail in a line through the enemy's formation, then turn sharply to ram the vulnerable sides and backs of their ships. The Periplaus was a classic flanking maneuver, where they'd use their superior speed to circle the enemy fleet and attack from behind. The goal was rarely a long, messy boarding action, which would waste their advantage in speed. Instead, they aimed to disable and destroy. A favorite tactic was to shear the oars off one side of an enemy ship, leaving it crippled and spinning in circles, a helpless target for a final ramming attack. This was naval warfare fought as a science, and Rome, with its land-based mindset, was utterly unprepared for it. Section 6. The Roman Response. The Game Changer. Faced with superior naval tech and skill, Rome did what it always did best. It changed the rules of the game. If the Romans couldn't win a battle of maneuver, they would turn the sea into a battlefield their legions could understand. The solution was a crude, brutal, but brilliantly effective invention, the corvus. The corvus, Latin for crow, was a big, movable boarding bridge, about 11 meters long and 1.2 meters wide. Mounted on the prow of a Roman ship, it could be swung around and slammed down onto an enemy vessel. At its tip was a heavy pointed spike, the beak of the crow, that would bite into the enemy's deck, locking the two ships together. Suddenly, Carthaginian seamanship meant nothing. Their faster, more agile ships were trapped. The sea battle was over, and a land battle had begun. Roman legionaries, heavily armed and masters of close-quarters combat, stormed across the bridge. The skilled Carthaginian sailors were no match for hardened Roman soldiers on their decks. The corvus completely changed the game. It nullified Carthage's greatest strengths and turned naval combat into an infantry fight, a fight Rome knew exactly how to win. Section 7. The Clash of Titans. The Punic Wars at Sea. The First Punic War became a titanic struggle defined by this clash of naval philosophies. The ultimate showdown came in 256 BC at the Battle of Cape Ecnomus, off the coast of Sicily. By the sheer number of people involved, it may have been the largest naval battle in all of history. Rome gathered a fleet of 330 warships to invade Carthage's homeland in Africa. Carthage sent 350 ships to stop them. In total, nearly 700 ships and almost 300,000 men were about to collide. The Carthaginians, confident in their superior skill, tried their classic flanking maneuvers. But the Romans used the corvus with deadly effect, grappling and boarding ship after ship. The brute force tactics of the Romans thrived in the chaos of the massive battle. By the end of the day, it was a crushing Roman victory. Carthage lost nearly 100 ships, a devastating blow. And yet Carthage's industrial might was so great that it could recover. They rebuilt their fleets repeatedly. The corvus, however, had a fatal flaw. Its immense weight made Roman ships top-heavy and dangerously unstable in rough seas. Rome lost more ships to storms than to Carthage, with one disaster alone costing them tens of thousands of men and hundreds of vessels. Eventually, the Romans ditched the Corvus, having finally learned enough about seamanship to fight the Carthaginians on their terms. This incredible arms race between two ancient superpowers is what makes this slice of history so fascinating. If you agree and want to see more stories about ancient engineering and game-changing weapons, hit that like button. Let us know in the comments which ancient rivalry we should tackle next. And make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. In the end, after 23 years of brutal war, Rome won. Its relentless determination and sheer manpower eventually wore Carthage down. But the legacy of Carthage's navy is undeniable. They were the innovators who set the standard for sea power. They were so formidable that they forced a nation of landlubbers to not only build a navy from nothing, but to eventually become masters of the sea themselves. The quinquereme, the kothon, the mass-produced parts. These weren't just historical footnotes. They were the engines of an empire that pushed Rome to its absolute limit. Carthage may have lost the war, but its naval genius forever changed the face of warfare and the destiny of the Mediterranean. They truly were, for a time, Rome's worst nightmare.